Now let's have a look at some of the advanced features of the hatch tool. Now here we have a fairly complicated geometry, and in this case we have multiple areas which are again inside any other area. For example, the first rectangle, then the second one, circle, rectangle. So one area is within the next and there is another area within the next. Now let's go to the hatch tool, and I'll select this NC31 pattern for the sake of simplicity, and I'll start applying the hatches. So in the first case, when you select any area, the island will be detected, or the immediate boundaries from the point where you click will be detected. So in this case, the outer boundary will be the circle and the inner boundary will be this rectangle. Now whatever the area falls in between these two extreme boundaries will be hatched. So that's the simple island detection. Now if you want the hatch tool to ignore this kind of island detection, you can change its options. So go to this options panel and expand it, and from here you can find this island detection tool. So click on this drop down and select ignore island detection. Now move back to the same area, and this time we don't have any inner island detection. Simply the rectangle is ignored, and if you click inside the rectangle, obviously there is no other island and it will completely hatch it. But if you select this area, once again all the internal geometries will be ignored. There will be no island detection. Obviously the outer island will still be recognized. So in this way you can change this option, and it is really helpful if you have plenty of objects inside any outer boundary that you want to include in your hatch. Now let's go to this options, and from here once again select this normal island detection, and we once again have this island detection. Now let's select the hatch tool once again, and I'll try to apply the hatch in this area. So when I move my cursor here, the hatch will be easily applied. If I select this area, the hatch will again be applied, but when I move my cursor to this area, the hatch will not be applied, and there is a very simple reason for that. Here we have a small gap. So currently the closed boundaries are not found, and that's why the hatches are not applied. But if you try to apply the hatch in this area, there will be a warning message, and this simply states that a closed boundary is not determined. But that simply does not mean that you cannot apply any hatch pattern in this area. You can still apply the hatches in this area using the gap tolerance. So I'll close this hatch creation, and I'll remove both of these hatches, and now I'll once again select this hatch pattern. Now I'll click in this area, and obviously you'll find this error message. Now we need to change some values in order to apply the hatch here. Now go to this options panel, expand it, and here you'll see this gap tolerance option. So you need to increase the gap tolerance, and the gap tolerance value should be approximately larger than the value of gap here. So whatever the gap is here, the value of gap tolerance should be greater than that. So I'll simply type DI to find out the gap here, and the gap here is 4.70 units. So let's add a value of 5 in gap tolerance. So select the hatch pattern, expand this panel, and add a gap tolerance of 5 and press enter. Now let's go to this area again and click here, and now we have this message box which is different from the message box which we saw earlier, and here we have this continue hatching this area option. So select it, and the hatch will be applied here, and that's only because of gap tolerance. Now click on close hatch creation, and here we have it. The hatch is applied even when there is an open area. So now let's erase it, and let's look at other options. So once again I'll select the hatch pattern, and now I'll select multiple areas to create our hatches. So I'll select these 3 areas, and now I'll close the hatch creation. Now in this case, when you click on any of these hatches, you'll find that all of these hatches are selected because I've selected all of these areas in a single run to make this hatch, and that's why they are treated as a single unit. Now you can make them as separate hatches by making the hatches one by one. So you can make this hatch, then exit the command, then make this hatch pattern and exit the command and repeat the process for the last one. Or you can also select a different approach. So I'll first erase this hatch pattern, and now once again I'll go to the hatch tool, select the first area, the second one, and the third area. Now here expand this options, and here we have a create separate hatches option. So click on this create separate hatches. So that will ensure that these hatches will be treated as separate entities. And now click on close hatch creation. Now select any of these and they are completely separate from one another. There is also a draw order for hatches, so I'll erase this complete hatch pattern. And now once again I'll select the hatch and I'll select any area. So let's select this area first. Now in this case we have a boundary and also we have an hatch. We don't know whether the hatch is overlapping the boundary or it's other way around. So in order to check that, again expand the options panel, and here you will find the option. So currently the hatches are behind the boundary. As you can see here, it's sent behind the boundary option, which is now selected. So let's keep that option active. The hatches are behind the boundary, and close the hatch creation. Let's go to the hatch again, and this time change the option, and let's change it to bring in front of the boundary, and apply the hatch here and close it. Okay, so in this case the hatch is above the boundary, here behind the boundary. Let's see the difference. Let's move on to the boundaries here, and in this case you will be able to select the boundaries because the hatches are behind the boundary. Now in this case, when you move to the boundary, the hatch will be selected, and that's quite evident because the hatch is overlapping the boundary. So that's the subtle difference between these two hatch patterns. You can also change the draw order of hatches, and to make it clear, I'll once again create a new hatch pattern. So select this hatch, click on this area to apply the hatch pattern, and I'll change the color of this hatch to red. And now here we have these options. Let's click on this drop down, and here we have many options here like the send to back and bring to front. So let's select this send to back option, and now click on close hatch creation. Now the current hatch pattern has been sent to back, but it's obviously not making any difference. So in order to see the difference, let's bring the hidden text. I have already created a text here, so I'll just bring it in the drawing area using this end object isolation, and now you can see clearly that the hatch is behind this text. Now what if you want to bring this hatch above the text? For that you can modify this hatch. Select the hatch, once again go to the options, and from here bring it to front. So let's select this bring to front and close the hatch, and now you can see that this hatch is clearly overlapping the text. So that's the difference between the different draw orders. So in the previous case it was behind the text, and now it's above the text. So you can select any of these options. So that was all about some of the advanced features of hatch.